And thanks very much for everyone that's taken the time to join today. Very excited to introduce this webinar to you. So today we're going to look at the role digital service plays in delivering excellence within customer service, how we can help kind of exceed the expectation of our guests, our passengers, our travelers, our patrons. My name is Ed Swain. I help lead our CX business for the UK at Oracle. For that means everything in the front office. So that's helping marketeers find new customers and future customers. That's helping sales teams to manage leads and drive conversion, and also helping service leaders deliver an experience to their customers as well. I'm very thankful to be joined by Jan as well. He helps lead our industry team for travel, transportation, and hospitality as well. He has a very deep client side and industry experience, and he helps some of our leading customers with their challenges, feeding in insight from the market, what other customers are doing, and he's got some great insight to share with you today. I'm also joined by a couple of the team at Box Fusion. Box Fusion are one of our longest standing and most trusted CX partners. They've got a large experience from CRM, but also through to service and all parts of CX as well. Andy is their managing director and also their CX evangelist. He's passionate about everything CX, and you'll see that today. And he's joined by Jake as well, who has some specialism within conversational AI, which, as we'll see today, is going to be one of the topics of kind of disruption and opportunity within this industry as well. So if we could just go on to the next slide. Very quick bit of housekeeping. You would have seen when we joined that this is being recorded. None of you can be seen in this recording, so don't worry about what anyone's wearing if you haven't managed to get out of your PJs yet. But what that does mean is there's no need to I know, scribble notes everywhere or worry too much. We're going to share this all afterwards as well. We really encourage you to ask questions as we go through. The QA tool is really useful in Zoom. So if you click in and add your questions in there, as we go through, there'll be people monitoring the chat, but also we'll try and give the people speaking at the time the opportunity to answer them direct as well. And then finally, we'd love your feedback. We're trying to do some new things here. We're trying to share knowledge, trying to drive interest in this industry area and customer experience in general. So on the back of this, love to hear your thoughts. What could we do next? What would be interesting for you? So there'll be an opportunity for you to provide some feedback as well. Okay, great. So we're going to break down into a few things today that we're going to cover. The first that Jan's going to dive into it is more around the industry trends. So what's happening in the broader industry? What are some of the challenges trying to be addressed? And then specifically also from a customer's perspective, what's their expectations and the experiences that we're trying to deliver them? Again, be that a patron or a guest in a hotel or some form of hospitality venue, be it a passenger in some form of transportation service as well. Then the Box Fusion team are then going to talk to us specifically around digital service within hospitality and show some of the technology and the capability that can deliver that. And kind of in doing that, share a customer success story of someone that's already gone and achieved some great things, and then show some live solution as well, because trying to bring some of this to life always helps. And then we'll have a chance for a few takeaways at the end and a wrap up. And then we'll have everyone on their way. So I'm really thankful for everyone that's joined. Please do lean into this. The more you try and ask us, challenge us, hopefully the more you can take away from it. So thank you for your time, and I'm going to pass over to Jan.
Thank you very much, Ed. Good morning, everybody. I will share with you today indeed what we see in the industry and what we hear from our customers are some of the key trends and also some of the key challenges that you are facing in the travel and hospitality industry. Some of the key trends that we see, first of all, of course, after the pandemic, people are really ready to travel again. We see what we call revenge travel. People have been locked up for some time and really eager to travel. But this now, of course, is combined with the fact that we have inflation, there's economic uncertainty, there's some political unrest as well, of course, in the region, which means that people really, when they travel, they want to have value for money. So they want to travel, they want to have experiences, which is becoming more and more important than, let's say, spending money on material things. But they want to make sure that they have a good experience, and the customer experience is becoming more a competitive, let's say, differentiator between the different, let's say, travel companies, airlines, and hotels in the industry. Then on the technology front, another thing that we've seen during the pandemic is the increase of use of technology to help, let's say, the customer experience at the front desk in hotels, for instance, or in cruise companies, or in let's say in airlines as well. Mobile interface, self-service. Accenture is stating that the use of technology and mobile technology and touchless technology has increased by 66%. So there's a lot of opportunities here. First of all, to deliver a better customer experience, because many people prefer to do, let's say, self-service check-ins, etc. But also, since there's as you will see in the next slide, there's of course an issue on the labor market in both the travel and hospitality industry. This takes away a lot of burden also on the front desk side, with things now being able to be done directly by the customers and by the travelers and the guests, instead of having, let's say, a lot of frontline staff attending to these people, what they can do themselves. A third trend that we see is the hybrid logic. So this is specifically for the hospitality industry. We see a blending of what hotels are offering and what vacation rental companies are offering, for instance, so short-term rentals. Hotels are moving more and more into the area of longer term, let's say, rentals and offering services similar to an Airbnb, but also companies like an Airbnb are moving into providing more services that hotels are offering as well. So we see both the offerings also on online travel agencies, for instance, being offered at the same page and having different options for the travelers to choose from. Then on the inspiration side, of course, when we look at the younger generation, who are very much in love in using tools like Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. So travel search is also changing in the sense that more and more bookings are done directly from online media, for instance. We see social influencers even not just promoting certain travel options to their followers, but also directly incorporating booking links in their page that travelers and let's say followers can book directly on their personal profile. And then when we look at accommodation, we see more and more customization of accommodation in the hotel industry, similar to what is happening in the last decade, at least already, in the airline industry. So having options to personalize what you find in your hotel room, for instance, around amenities, but also activities that are being offered to create new upsell opportunities, and also provide a more personalized experience, having the choice for guests, for travelers to choose exactly what they want when they get to a resort, to a hotel, similar to what we've have in the airline industry, booking, let's say, parking at the airport, lounge access, VIP access in the airport as part of your travel experience. And then lastly, of course, the trend around artificial intelligence, and that will be a key focus on the webinar later as well, to improve the guest experience. We've already seen this in the service area, as Ed was referring to, with chatbots, of course, being used to take burden away from a large overload that we see many times at the call centers of people calling in and having inquiries or changes in, let's say, the travel itinerary. using knowledge base and chatbots, taking burden away again from the staff shortage issue that we see there, but also on the upselling opportunities, making sure that based on the customer profile and the data that you have available from your customers, providing new specific, let's say, travel packages and offers to your guests. Then we will look at the challenges. 5 of the key challenges that we see when we talk to our customers are, first of all, the labor issue still, of course, so the whole increasing costs on labor, but also the problem many times in finding staff and retaining talent within the company. So making sure that you engage with your company, that you retain your staff, that you make sure that they're trained in the right skills to make sure that they, first of all, provide a better customer experience, but also that they see a clear path in their career development as well, and don't move, let's say, to other industries, which has happened a lot during the pandemic, of course. The second area, and this is the key focus for today's webinar, is around nurturing customer loyalty through personalized experiences. So we'll go into more detail on that later. But we also still see when you want to offer a personalized experience, you depend on the data that you have. And many airline, hospitality, and travel companies are still stuck with, let's say, disconnected systems. So they have a lot of data within their company, but it's not readily available to everybody in the organization, which stifles innovation on one hand, makes it difficult to really innovate. But also mergers and acquisitions are becoming more complicated, which we see a lot both in hospitality as well in the airline industry, because the different companies that are joined are using different systems. So having one integrated system with common data as a single source of truth is key for travel companies to provide a better customer experience. Then the fourth area is around ESG, of course, especially the last couple of years. A year ago, there were new regulations, let's say, put in place in Europe, the European Union, around ESG metrics that have to be incorporated in annual reporting. Many companies find it difficult to track what they're doing on not only on the environmental side, but on the social and governmental side as well. This puts a lot of pressure also on cost, of course, in starting to report on these things. So we're helping many companies on providing the right data to make sure that you can report to both investors, but also to the general public, who are becoming more wary about ESG, let's say, initiatives, and really want to see companies improve on this, and they want to see what they're doing from here into the next, let's say, 10 years in improving on ESG. And the last side is, of course, driving profitability through new business models. In the airline industry, we see things like the IATA One Order initiative, airline retailing, to create new profitability, extra profitability, but also on the hospitality side, hotels going into, let's say, offering not only services to travelers, but also to the local community. So today's focus will be on the customer experience, as I mentioned. And one of the key topics, as I said, is around AI, generative AI. So how can this really help both the travel and hospitality industry provide a better guest experience? And when you look at this is from a McKinsey report and Skift from a couple of months ago, goes through the full, let's say, traveler journey through the different phases of dreaming, planning, booking, pre-trip, on-trip, and post-trip. The different opportunities that companies have by using generative AI, not only in recommending more personalized and better offers during the, let's say, the planning phase, but also once they're on the travel, how do you provide better customer support? And we will go into that in the next slide with one of our customers that Box Fusion has implemented for Oracle. And what we see, one of the key trends as well, is digital or virtual concierge services. So how can you use customer data to really provide tailored offers to your customers once they're traveling, once they're in your hotel property, based on customer data, but also other types of external data. And both Andy and Jake will go into a bit more detail on what we're doing with some of our customers in this sense as well. This is an example of the same report that McKinsey is providing is what companies are really starting to do with Gen AI. So having that customer data, for instance, if you have a family in your resort, in your hotel, looking at the data that you have available in the profile of the different members of that family, for instance, you can offer a very specific activity during their stay, and based on, for instance, if they have children, things like going them to a fair and bumper cars will not be a good fit because they have small children. But also looking at information like weather reports. What's the upcoming weather? So maybe mini golf is nice in the summer, but if there's bad weather coming up, that will not be a good option either. Or providing tickets to a show where only a few tickets are available. So the tickets that are available maybe don't have the right view. So more and more data is being used to narrow down what the options are. Looking at similar families, have they done an activity around, for instance, cooking classes? If that was stressful for a similar type of profile, this is not something that you want to offer in the end. A spa, for instance, which might be a good option, but from historical data that the guests had a similar experience not so long ago, so that will not be the perfect option either until you get to for instance, the option to provide a magic show on a cruise or in a hotel, indoor, friendly for the family. You have good front row tickets available, so there's a good probable fit that you will sell those tickets to your customers. So this type of data using generative AI will be something that companies are looking more into providing to their customers. In Amadeus, on the AI side, we're offering what they say pervasive AI strategy. So based on two pillars. On one hand, we can offer our technology that you can build your own AI solutions, custom AI solutions based on, for instance, our cloud infrastructure, using our Oracle Digital Assistant or cloud analytics. Or we can offer a very specific embedded AI within our applications. So within our CX applications, for instance, our ERP applications that you can readily use. So depending on where you are in let's say, your strategy of incorporating AI, you can either do it yourself and we can support you with our technology, or we can offer readily made AI solutions that you can already use from the start. One of the examples that we want to share with you today is Center Parcs, and this was a company that was implemented by Box Fusion. So Andy and Jake will go in a bit more detail later, where we helped them by implementing our digital assistant in improving the way that they manage their customer service, providing their employees, for instance, the option to work from home as well, to taking inbound and outbound calls, manage the digital assistant to take away a lot of the volumes that don't go to the staff and can be handled directly by the digital assistant, which then ensured, let's say, that the waiting time was dropped significantly. 30% of the, let's say, calls will be handled automatically through the digital assistant, making sure that your agents can focus on more personalized services, more value-added services to those guests. With that, I will now hand over to Andy, who will explain a bit more detail about Center Parcs and some of our other customer use cases with Jake on what we've implemented to improve the customer experience in the hospitality industry. Jake, over to you.
Thanks, Jan. Appreciate that. So hopefully you can see my screen now. So yes, by way of introduction, I was thinking about how to kind of kick things off, and I thought I could have gone back hundreds or even thousands of years looking at how humans traveled and how we were looked after and how we entertained ourselves and undertook experiences, but decided to start my look back on the advance of sort of customer service technology back to the 80s. At this point, I think it was probably starting to be a bit more money around in the economy than in prior years, and the travel had become cheaper. We spent more time looking for leisure activities, holidays, restaurants. And then by the late 90s, I started working with CRM technology. So yeah, my face pops up in the 90s, not because I was born then, sadly, but because that's when I first started working with CRM technology. It was quite a new concept still, had origins back in the 80s, but was seeking to bring your business's customer interactions together in one place so that you could improve the service you were providing and increase revenues ultimately. But from then to now, this space has evolved. Now, first probably quite slowly, but eventually as consumer habits changed and the pace of business CRM evolution accelerated, things have really progressed. So Box Fusion got going in 2010. As Ed mentioned, we were at the beginning, we've always been focused entirely on the CRM and customer experience space with technology. We were sort of founded around the time that I would say the e-commerce revolution was well and truly established. We were all starting to use smartphones and probably didn't realize then exactly how they would evolve, but they were well and truly a thing at that point. Jake also joined Box Fusion in 2010, but certainly the CRM world was completely different to the landscape we have today. The technology available was less evolved, and consumer behavior was probably more linear. The journey was more linear. But as consumer expectations and preferences changed, businesses had to start to reach their consumers in the digital world and allow their customers to reach them at a time and a place, and by a mechanism of the customer's choosing. Jake, I was going to ask you, you've gone from largely thinking about CRM screens helping agents input data to, I guess, you're now 4 or 5 years of specializing in conversational AI. What would you say is the biggest change from your role?
Yeah, I think actually one of the biggest changes is how integration between so many different systems has developed, and how that is now able to be used to drive so much of the modern customer experience. In the past, you had a CRM application and that had very limited integration with other systems. Maybe that integration was overnight data loads and so on. And that really had a limiting effect on the customer experience. Whereas now these systems are all integrated together, and working with technologies like Digital Assistant, we really see the importance of that, because we can pull that data together and use it to drive user journeys and conversations and improve self-service and so on.
Yeah, 100%. Okay. Thanks, Jake. So yeah, I started today with a timeline as a way of sort of introducing myself, Jake, Box Fusion, and position us, but also just start all of us thinking, I guess, about what themes have come along in the journey of CRM and customer service over the last sort of 20, 30 years. But and one thing that's remained constant is the importance of data. We want to get out there and into these sort of mindsets and knowing your customer better. We were talking about a 360-degree view of the customer 25 years ago, and we still are really. But now when we get into talking about generative AI and obviously that's exploded over the last 12 months, the transformational possibilities for customer service are significant. But we need to recognize that the themes of integrated data, accurate data, and data being available in the right place at the right time are essential for these generative AI applications to serve accurate content. So today, first, I wanted to introduce a summary at this point of what we call our service maturity framework. So we use this to assess organizations' maturity in customer service operations, and it helps us to advise on sort of improvement areas and where changes can be made. And we have sort of 4 stages, 4 high-level stages, from what we term basic level service through to a leading service. And in general, it should be read as the sorts of things that we typically find and see within an organization service function, depending on how mature that function is. So typically, as an organization becomes more mature and advanced in customer service ops, they're doing more to meet their customers in a manner and a time that's more convenient to that customer. So thinking about 24/7 support and information available at the customer's fingertips, most relevant and up-to-date content and capability, a human touch where needed, but cross-channel, meeting a customer on their most favored channels, personalized service, the most helpful predictive and preemptive service, which is where artificial intelligence starts to play a key role. I was going to have a quick look at stage one. Just in summary, this is where you'd see a very basic level of service and really represents the minimum set of technology and processes you might find to support customers. And typically it's just a basic CRM capability with telephone and or email channels. Things like reporting and analytics of service performance is likely to be off system, and information captured is only accessible within customer service. So the data that might be of interest in the back office is actually siloed, and vice versa. And you may find some basic and static FAQs available on the website as well. So I might be booked to travel somewhere by train or plane, and then shortly beforehand, I can go onto the website and read some FAQs, find a phone number or an email address to contact the business, but not a lot more in terms of the service offering. And on this organization side, customer service emails and phone logs are not necessarily connected to their booking engine or other data points that might be coming back into the business. Moving from there into stage two, an emerging service. So here we're starting to see some of the more common tools, I think, that you'd recognize today to help with customer experience. So we're thinking here more things like a web self-service for support, with a portal that might have a number of features such as dynamic knowledge articles or status of being able to check the status of your complaints or issues, and more information about your travel, your visit or your stay. Capabilities such as live chat with agents comes in here, and enabling staff to support more customers. And over the past few years, it's become a preferred channel for us as consumers or customers and guests, rather than the traditional channels of phone or email. And service analytics will typically be available within your CRM at this point, and you're giving your operational team insights into when they're busy, when how the team's performing and functioning at different times of day, whether you've got gaps in your knowledge content or your FAQs that you need to fill, etc. And at this point with stage two, I wanted to jump back into Center Parcs, as alluded to by Jan earlier, because if I start the story back in March 2020, Center Parcs had a support portal and some good knowledge content, but they were definitely at stage two in our sort of maturity assessment. They didn't have live chat with their agents at that point though either. But thinking back to that March 2020, as I'm sure everybody will remember, this was the time that the COVID pandemic really was taking off, and it was at this point for Center Parcs that their villages and their head offices all had to close. And guests attempting to contact Center Parcs to request refunds or understand what's going to happen with their future holiday and travel plans. They had 150,000 bookings, so you imagine the number of customers then were who were inquiring with Center Parcs. It really overwhelmed the support team very quickly. And given that Center Parcs' telephony channel wasn't equipped for remote work, the staff now couldn't take inbound calls, and the company was reliant on email and social media as a tool set for connecting with their guests. And these channels quickly became saturated and hard to keep up with. So Center Parcs realized it needed to take a different approach, and a way to support agents who were working from home and maintain the reputation for excellence in customer service that they have. Just going to wait for the fire alarm to pass. I'm told it's not coming through my mic, so I'll carry on. At this point, we worked with Center Parcs to quickly get their agent live chat channel up and running within their CRM. So this assisted their remote workers to handle more customer inquiries in a convenient way to those customers. And quickly afterwards, we were able to put the Oracle Digital Assistant or chatbot in front of that live chat to automate as many of the inquiries as possible. And we tuned it for the topics that were most relevant to guests at this time. And maintaining the friendly brand persona that Center Parcs have, and making sure that the chatbot conveyed that brand persona was an important part of the process, and that Jake was involved in. And so now Center Parcs can manage a far larger volume of inbound guest queries and requests, and provide immediate responses and automated support at critical moments. That support is also now available 24/7 as a result of the digital assistant being there. And so I think one of the key takeaways for me about this experience was that really pretty much all business will, especially over the last few years, recognize that shock events can make it very challenging to meet customer expectations of service. And I think in hospitality in this space, the pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic, was a kind of, I guess, the biggest possible example of a shock event, and something that was not really possible to plan for. But having these automated channels and these new ways of working available has meant much more flexibility to scale and adapt to these kind of events. Jake, since I have you on, I thought, as you worked so closely with Center Parcs, I'd just ask you whether, I guess, what was your biggest takeaway that you'd like to share with in terms of this project and that time?
Yeah, I think from the chatbot digital assistant perspective, the biggest takeaway, I think, was for me was the importance of really knowing your customers and who they are and what they need, and the huge impact that can have on the success of your ODA project. Because if you can effectively gather data about your customers' pain points and the challenges that they're having, and then focus your digital assistant and your offering on supporting those, then you can really improve the customer experience. And that's how we managed to make sure that the Center Parcs digital assistant was able to support their customers during that pandemic and during the lockdowns, because we looked at the data to understand what concerns they had, and we made sure that the digital assistant was able to provide the answers and the support that customers needed at that point. And that was how we managed to make that really effective and take a lot of that burden off the contact center.
Great, yeah, and I actually think the best example we had, and where the really amazing data point came from, was for those of you in the UK, might recall that back in February of 2021, the government started to map out a plan for how the country would reopen. It's obviously of critical importance to hospitality. Now, we were all given, I think, I forget how many weeks of notice that this roadmap plan was going to be announced, and we all knew what day it was going to be on. So we had a few weeks, and Center Parcs had a few weeks, but we knew that on that day, whatever got announced and whatever happened, there was going to be a huge surge in customer and guest demand and questions coming into Center Parcs. And so we were able to adapt the conversation flows, the skills, and the intents that the digital assistant was going to handle to very specific topic areas we were expecting to be coming in. And as a result of that, when the traffic increased by over 10 times in the 24 and 48-hour period after the announcement at 5 o'clock on that day in February, the digital assistant was able to handle 65% of that traffic. So it was a great example of what this technology can do. Moving on from Center Parcs, so as I said, we assessed, they were kind of transitioning there, some stage 2 and stage 3 type of capabilities. And if I sort of jump into stage 3 a little bit more, as this is where I'm going to hand over to Jake shortly just to show a couple of demos. So here we're starting to see personalization coming into the businesses who are taking a more strategic approach to customer service, and therefore the benefits of a slightly more joined up approach to your data with across business functions. So yeah, I think at this point I'm going to hand over to you, Jake, because you've got a couple of demos that bring together the digital assistant or chatbot, and I think over WhatsApp. So again, channel integration, but also then with some back-end integration, automation, and personalization.
Yeah, great. So the first demo that I'll show shortly will introduce our digital concierge in WhatsApp, which also forms the basis of the rest of today's demos. And the scenarios that I'm showing today do relate to a hotel guest who's recently checked in. But hopefully you'll be able to see how this form of digital concierge tool can actually be used within a wide range of travel and hospitality contexts, where your customers might want to be able to access support and services kind of throughout their entire journey or sort of life cycle with you. So first I'll be showing the concierge's ability to help guests check their balance of charges to their room, as well as then the ability to place orders directly through the chat with the concierge. This journey starts with a welcome message that's sent proactively by the digital concierge to the guest. You'll see the notification there. As soon as they check in, they get this. And this means that they'll always have the concierge available to them just a tap away in WhatsApp, which is great for encouraging kind of interaction throughout their stay. So in this example, the customer wants to check their balance. And when they do that, they're shown their current total balance immediately, plus a link to download the full invoice as it currently stands as well, so they can review the charges in more detail if they'd like to. And they can do this at any point during their stay, not just immediately after receiving the message. But then because they have access to the concierge at all times, they can use it to place new orders as well. So for example, they could order coffees or breakfast to their room, which leads to a really convenient user experience and encourages that engagement, because guests can place these orders even if they're not in their room, or even if they're away from the hotel premises entirely. And thanks to the direct integration with back-end systems, those orders are placed instantly, and the details are then reflected on their invoices in near real time. So the experience for the guest is really smooth and transparent, with the latest orders taking effect there. And then finally, once the room service order has been delivered, the concierge is able to check in with the guest and make sure that they're happy with everything, and get feedback from them. So that encourages really accurate feedback immediately, and allows any issues to be rectified quickly and more effectively as well. Okay, and this second journey focuses on a guest who needs to get help with an issue in their room. So we look at how the concierge can help them with that in quite a seamless and very effective way. So this time, starting with the same welcome message, the guest can tap the quick report an issue button on the welcome message to do this, but obviously they could send the message at any point as well. And the concierge can hopefully help them to self-serve by running them through troubleshooting steps, providing instructions and pictures, so that hopefully they'll be able to resolve the issue for themselves. Because in this case, our guest is having trouble getting their TV to work, so they've asked the concierge for help, and it's walking them through those steps. But equally, if the guest can't resolve this themselves, then integration with the field service application allows the concierge to consult the scheduler and suggest times for an engineer to visit. So here you'll see that it presents them with slots. So the guests can choose a time that suits them. The slot is booked automatically. So that provides a really convenient way for the guests to kind of help themselves 24/7 where possible, or get more support from staff really easily too, if that's needed. And again, of course, once the issue has been marked as resolved by the engineer, the concierge can ask the guest for feedback too. And obviously requesting feedback in this way is also really unobtrusive, because there's no need for the hotel to call the guest or to knock on their door and potentially disturb them. They can provide their feedback in their own time directly in the chat. So those were the first two demos that I was just going to show.
Cool, thanks, Jake. Okay, so jumping back out, this point I was going to quickly touch on moving into stage 4 of maturity. So by this point, companies are very mature in the way they manage their data. They're providing multi-channel support to customers. The focus is on themes like predictive or preemptive service, and the use of AI to help do more is now more commonplace. So this is where the emergence, I think, of generative AI over the last 12 months has so much potential for customer service. So I'm gonna ask Jake at this point to take us through the final demo today, which he's pulled together quite quickly, just to showcase. I think one of the many possible ways that you could think about using generative AI, and it's I guess touches on some of the themes that Jan also talked about in his presentation earlier. So Jake, here I'll let you take.
Thanks, Eddie. Yeah, so in this final demo, I'll show an example that integrates generative AI and large language models with the digital assistant to enhance the guest experience by suggesting an itinerary for the customer's stay or their journey. So if you could just start that for me, Andy. Thank you. So again, in this case, starting from our welcome message, this time, our guest will ask the concierge for itinerary suggestions by tapping on the Things to Do button. And once they've done that, as you can see, we'll gather together various details about the guest's booking, which will help us to build a personalized itinerary for them. So once the guest confirms that they'd like to do that, we feed that relevant information into the generative AI service, and we tell it to generate an appropriate itinerary for our guests based on all the information that we know about them. So the response that you see here is the generative AI response. It's tailored to the individual guests based on all the information we've passed in, including the dates. So as you can see, it's suggested morning, afternoon, and evening activities for each day of their stay. All the activities are family friendly because we know they have children staying with them. And it can also promote facilities within the hotel or the resort itself, such as restaurants and on-site entertainment. And it can also factor in any existing bookings that the guest may have already made, such as if they have a spa treatment booked, for example, we can build the itinerary around those too. And this is just the first suggestion. So the guests can feel free to revise the itinerary by providing feedback to it. So for example, the recommendations that we have here assume the family will spend the whole day together. But if the parents have booked a babysitter for the evenings because they want that time to themselves, they can just let the concierge know that, and it will then provide alternative options, which you'll see just now. And what you'll see is that because we've suggested activities that are suitable for us without the kids, instead, it will suggest a couple of concerts for the evenings because those are probably a little bit more oriented towards the parents rather than the children.
Thanks, Jake. So yeah, I think that hopefully that gave you a very brief sort of flavour for a concept that we've been discussing with the customer, but that I guess also links back to the McKinsey report that Jan was talking about earlier, and that this is a sort of theme with generative AI that's likely to be just a further growing in the coming months. So and potentially some of you watching today have already started to think about this sort of use case. But yeah, I think at this point we're sort of at the end of our slot. And obviously, I wanted to take the opportunity today to kind of introduce some of these things that we've been doing with customers, some of the potential of the latest technology, and the journey that we've, I guess, all been on with technology that supports CRM customer experience, and the, I guess, different elements that you start to see as customers and businesses become more mature with the way that they use technology in this space. So I think at this point we were going to just see if there's been any questions come in while any of us have been talking and try and address those.
Not sure if there's already questions in the Q&A. I do have a question maybe to start it off. I think that GenAI use cases is very interesting, and like you said, very much in line with McKinsey and Skift we're talking about in the report. Have you already implemented this with a customer, or is this something readily available if customers want this today or tomorrow?
Yeah, so I mean, it's not something that we've implemented for a customer, but it is something that you know, different flavors of it could be very quickly stood up for a customer today. Jake sort of got this demo working with very minimal time on the build up to today, just to give a flavor for it, because the trained large language models are available for use, and we have APIs available to them. So depending on the business's sort of use case and how far you want to take it, we've obviously showed something here that's using a base model for helping do quite a generic sort of task. But if you wanted to layer in much more personalization and use more of your own data or your own business's capabilities or offerings, then that's another thing that you can add to it to make it even more performant. But yeah, it's something that can be very quickly put together at low cost and low effort to stand up.
Okay, yeah, very interesting.
I don't know if would you add anything, Jake, at all in terms of into that, or any of the experience you've had putting that together?
No, just to say I agree, and there's a whole spectrum of ways in which the Gen AI services can support, and so obviously then as a result the complexity is a bit of a spectrum as well, and there are lots of really excellent ways in which it can be used with very little kind of barrier to entry, I think, really.
Okay, so I don't think we've got any active questions come in while we've been speaking, unless you can see any, Jan. So
I haven't seen any either, but yeah, I mean, I would encourage people just to maybe unmute themselves if they want to ask a live question, or if not, you can put them in the chat or in the Q&A section as well.
Otherwise, I think that I was going to leave everybody with sort of closing remarks. So thank you. Hopefully you found today's webinar interesting and thought-provoking. If you'd like to talk with any of us more about your plans around developing your digital customer service offerings, please reach out. And if you'd like to talk to Box Fusion about a service maturity assessment, we'd be pleased to hear from you. There's an email address on the screen, and yeah, there's also a QR code to link to some more of our hospitality related content. Otherwise, I think we can probably wrap up the webinar at this point. Unless you had any closing remarks, Jan, we can.
No, I think this is great. So thank you all for attending indeed. And as Andy is saying, if you have any further questions, please reach out to us, either to Box Fusion or to Oracle directly. And we're happy to help you in, let's say, investigating if you're interested in one of the use cases that we've shown you today, or any other specific topic around improving, let's say, the travel experience or the guest experience at your company.
Great. Thanks very much, everyone. Thanks for joining, and have a good rest of your day.